Hello, saints of God. My name is Heaven, and I am a servant of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Today is Saturday, November 7th, 2020. This channel is about educating, giving solutions, and answers to the body of Christ to navigate through the book of Revelations for the upcoming events and the Christian perils of things that they are enduring or going to endure. If you are not a believer in Jesus Christ of Nazareth, it would behoove you to please get saved. You are going to need the Holy Spirit to navigate through the upcoming events. Now, I pray that you write this information down, save it, give it to your children, your family, pass it on to other Christians, and subscribe to the channel. There will be a time that the internet is not available or will not be available. And that's another video for another day. But for right now, while we have the internet available, let's use it as an outlet to get this information to other believers in the body of Christ around the world so that they will know what to do. Let's move forward. Today is about the topic zombie apocalypse. Now, any information that I give you, I received it from Jesus Christ of Nazareth, either through auditory, which means he verbally told me, or through dreams, visions, or supernatural occurrences. Now, in the year 2015, in February, I had a combination of two dreams. The first one, I was on my knees in the bathroom, leaning over the side of a tub, and I had a zombie in the tub in water. The auditory voice of the Lord said, "Submerge him underneath the water." So I pushed his head back underneath the water, and within a few seconds, he returned back to normal. In the second dream, there were chaos, a series or people running around, running from zombies that were trying to eat them. They were climbing on walls, fences, cars, anything to get out of the way to try to elevate themselves to a higher level than ground level to get away from the zombies. The Christians were down on the ground trying to get the zombies to the water. The zombies did not have an effect on the Christians. They were able to drag the people to a lake and get them submerged under the water to return to normal. Now, before I get to what all this means and the actual solution, I'm going to give you a scripture reference from Numbers 21, 5 through 9. And the Lord and the people spake against God and against Moses, "Wherefore have ye brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loathe this light bread." Now, this scripture is talking about when Moses delivered the children of Israel out of bondage from Egypt, and as they were wandering through to the promised land, we know that God gave them a wafer to eat as their form of bread, and they were tired of eating it and complaining it. In verse 6 of chapter 21, "And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against thee. Pray unto the Lord that he take away the serpents from us." And Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said unto Moses, "Make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live." And Moses made a serpent of brass, and put it upon a pole, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Moses was given power from God. The same way we will be given power, or already have power through the Holy Spirit that's dwelling within us, to return these people back to good health, as Moses did with the serpent of brass. Now, let's get into the instructions here. I'm using my computer to go over my notes to make sure that I don't forget anything. Now, Christians, these are the instructions. Christians that are imbued with the Holy Spirit are to anoint a body of water, any body of water. For example, a tub, a lake, a river, etc. We are to completely submerge the human zombies underneath the water. The zombies will not affect those who are truly filled with the Holy Ghost. When the Christians submerge the zombies underneath the anointed water, they will return to normal and no longer be zombies, but human again. Okay? Those are your instructions. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we have here. You have nothing to lose by following the Lord's instructions, but everything to gain. Okay? Everything to gain. By Jesus Christ's infinite mercy, He has given us a solution. So please go and warn others. Spread this video to as many people as possible. Get the information out there. I don't care if you write it down. This channel is not about views, but it's about getting the information out there to other believers that are filled with the Holy Spirit. If you are a believer in Christ and you're lukewarm, okay, you need to rededicate your life back to the Lord so that you may have the power when the time is needed. There will be several things that you will need the Holy Spirit for. There will be others that I'm going to give you instructions, like the 3 days of darkness, things to do in order to keep those things, attract those things from your home, that I'll provide to you in other future videos that are to come after this one. But for the things that you need the Holy Spirit, please do not take a chance with your life. Do not take a chance with your children's life. Get your house in order. If you are an unbeliever and after hearing this information would like to give your life to Christ, as stated in the Holy Bible, in any Holy Bible, preferably the King James Version, but in a Holy Bible no less, in Romans chapter 10, 9, verse 9 through 10, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is the only Lord and Savior of your life, and that He died on the cross for your sins, we know as well as ours, and rose after 3 days, says you'll be saved. What the Lord says, that's what it means. Okay? What He says is what it means. He's not a liar. Okay? Please get into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Start praying. You need that relationship. You may not have to know all the words of the Bible. No one really does. I mean, the relationship and that prayer, and that is what will get you through, and having faith, believing in the Lord, in the power of His might. Okay? You can do all things. You can do all things. And as in the words of Jesus, please, sin no more. Sin no more, people. Come on. Live righteously as outlined in the Word. Okay? He is your Word. I thank you for watching this video. As I said once again, write the information down. You won't have YouTube always. You won't have the internet always available to you to click on the video and to figure out what to do in your time of fear. Who knows how long it will be before the darkness will come. It may be next month. It may be next year. It may be in 5 years. Who is to say? Okay? Our life is not promised to us on this earth, but you will need to know what to do in that zombie apocalypse when it comes, and your children will need to know what to do. Okay? Even if you are a Christian filled with the Holy Spirit, you need to know what to do, and keep it in your mind. Write it down. Write down the things that I tell you. Okay? Nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Everything to gain. Well, God bless you, and until the next video. Thank you for watching.